Welcome, everybody. My name is Marty Mascari. I am a contractor under the North Central Texas Area Agency on Aging and the North Central Texas Aging and Disability Resource Center, or ADRC, both of which are under the umbrella of the North Central Texas Council of Governments in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. I am absolutely blessed to have my partner in crime, Kelley.Kaiser, here today to help me present on affordable housing. Kelley is the housing navigator under the for Tarrant County, under the ADRC of Tarrant County, and the Area Agency on Aging and United Way. She's involved in all those things. So, but Kelley's been for those of you that have been with us for a while, Kelley's been my partner when we used to do the affordable housing seminars at the Grapevine Convention Center. And so I'm just thrilled to have you, Kelley. Thank you so much. But before we get started, if we could advance the slides one, Kelley, so I can go over the CEU requirements.
Sure.
Okay, for those of you that are joining us today that are looking to get CEUs, we are set up to provide CEUs for licensed social workers and licensed professional counselors within the state of Texas. If you have a different license in Texas, or you have a license outside of Texas, you're more than welcome to go through the process and get a certificate. But please note, there's no guarantee that they'll take it. I've had people tell me they've used them, but again, it just depends on the jurisdiction and what they're willing to do. I have had one or two that sent me an email. The jurisdiction sent me an email asking me for some information about the webinar, and I just sent them the slides. And as far as I know, they approved it for somebody, but that's, again, up to them. We're also offering a certificate of attendance for those people that would like to have that. Today's webinar is worth 1.5 hours of CEU credits. You must complete the entire live webinar and the live Q&A to qualify. And you must stick with us until the 3:30 finish time, unless we log off before 3:30. In addition to that, you must also complete the Google evaluation survey. Zoom should ask you when you close out if you would like to take a short survey. That will take you to our Google evaluation survey. If you don't see that, I know people have pop-up blockers, or you don't get it for some reason, it will also be sent out in the follow-up email after today's webinar. The Google survey will be up until the 5th of May. I'm sorry, until the 2nd of May. And please give us about a month to get those certificates out to you. We get ahead and then we get behind. So please give us about 4 weeks after that deadline to get them out to you. If not, feel free to email me and I'll be happy to look into it for you. So I'm going to ask you to advance the slide one more time. I'm going to say just real quick, we're going to try to cover a lot of ground about affordable housing. There is a lot of information. We're touching on several things. And then after you're done, after today's webinar, if you really would like to see us go into depth on any of the things we talked about, please put that in your comments on the evaluation survey when you take it. And maybe and that'll help guide us to what you guys want to see for further resources. But I'm going to turn it over to Kelley.Kaiser and let her take it. Thanks, Kelley.
Thank you, Marty. I appreciate you having me on with you. Yes, partners in crime we are, and it's great to be here. So as Marty said, I am the housing navigator for the Aging and Disability Resource Center in Tarrant County. And I also work with the Area Agency on Aging of Tarrant County, and have been with under the United Way of Tarrant County for about going on 19 years, so it's been a while. And today I am happy to be able to share with you the different types of housing and what that is going to look like. Let me change my slide here. So today I'm going to be introducing the different types of housing that we're going to be talking about today are housing vouchers, affordable housing, home ownership and self-sufficiency, and home repairs and home rehabilitation. So I wanted to include a little bit of that at the bottom, even though it's not really typed, but there are some programs there that I wanted to highlight. So we're going to go into different types of housing vouchers, and most people, when they hear housing vouchers, automatically think of Section 8, which is pretty common. But recently, and I don't remember the year, but they recently, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Affairs changed the actual program name to Housing Choice Voucher Program. So you'll still hear it called Section 8. People say, I want Section 8 vouchers, all that. This is the program that they are talking about. So what Section 8 in Housing Choice Voucher Program does is it bases the rent for the individual on the greater of two different incomes. So it can be either 30% of the monthly adjusted income or 10% of the monthly income of the individual. So it really depends. The most traditional model usually follows the 30%. And basically what that means is the person will pay only 30% of their income for that rent. And the rest, the difference, will be paid by HUD. Also, there is a minimum rent amount that the Public Housing Authority must charge a family. And typically, here again, that 30%. So, for example, if you have an apartment complex that is, let's throw a number out, $950, that person would only pay 30% of their amount for that apartment. So probably less than half of that rent amount. The rest would be subsidized by HUD. Here again, most of the units are privately owned in Section 8. I call it Section 8 still, though. Housing Choice Voucher Program. They are managed by private homeowners, property managers. So they are privately owned, but public housing authorities usually manage them and manage the voucher program specifically. So now these are very, very long wait lists. And typically in our area, it's usually about 8 to 10 years long. It can go a little bit faster, but typically because they're getting usually about I would say 15 to 20,000 applications. It takes a very long time. So most of the housing choice voucher programs are closed in our area. So that's why we are giving additional resources here. There is, when you have a Section 8 or a housing choice voucher program voucher, there is an option to carry it with you. So what that means is if you get a voucher, you can move it and it goes with you. So if you decide to move out of one apartment and find another property that will accept the voucher, that will that subsidy will go with you. And it gives you a lot more flexibility as far as where you want to be. It can even go out of state. And it's the most popular option and pretty much everybody wants it. Doesn't mean it's always accessible, but that's the one that is most requested. So we're going to move on to project-based vouchers next. So project-based vouchers is actually a component of the Housing Choice Voucher Program. And the Public Housing Authority uses tenant-based voucher funding to allocate for the unit. So they're just taking from that funding, from the Housing Choice Voucher funding to put a certain percentage of units on for those vouchers. So typically, most housing authorities will usually do about maybe 20% of the funding for project-based vouchers, but it really just depends. And they consider how best to leverage that to deconcentrate the poverty, expand the housing choices, encourage development of supportive housing, and just trying to make more units accessible. And also, they do consider the specific housing needs of the community that they're in. So, if there's a more specific population of people that need more of those vouchers, they're going to designate that. So, it really just depends on the community and what the community is needing. We're going to move again into a different type of voucher. And this actually recently, probably about, I want to say maybe 2016 or 2017, mainstream vouchers came into play. And this specific voucher is for those populations that are not elderly, but are disabled adults between 18 and 62 years old. Now, I did read in the information that if a person turns 62 and they were already issued the voucher before then, they will get to keep it. So if you turn 62 after that, unfortunately, no. Eligible person in household does not need to be the head of household. So that means that if a person in a family is the one applying for the voucher, they don't have to be the head of household to get it. So that is a good thing. So if there's family members that are disabled that are between those ages, they may be able to get one of those vouchers. You do have to meet the eligibility requirements for Housing Choice Voucher Program in order to get these. But these are very specific vouchers for specific target populations between those ages. And a lot of these vouchers are used to help transition out of institutional and segregated settings at serious risk of institutionalization, are currently experiencing homelessness, previously experienced homelessness and part of a permanent supportive housing or rapid rehousing program, which is basically the shelter system, and at risk of experiencing homelessness. So if a person is moving out of a facility and there's really no place for them to go, they might be able to get one of these. If they're at serious risk with mental illness or at risk of institutionalization, homelessness, all of those pretty severe cases may be eligible as long as they qualify. The next one I wanted to highlight is there is a HUD Veteran Assisted Supportive Housing Voucher. And basically this combines the Housing Choice Voucher Program with homeless veterans. So this is very veteran specific. There is a case management piece with this and a clinical supportive services, but the VA has to determine the eligibility and provide the referral to the Public Housing Authority. So that is an inter network that they collaborate with together to get those referrals over to the Public Housing Authority. Great program. They do use this in downtown Fort Worth. I know in the shelter areas. And so this is one that is really helpful for a lot of veterans that may qualify with limited incomes. So we also have USDA, and they have housing vouchers that are primarily offers protection to eligible housing tenants in multifamily properties who may face hardships through prepayment or foreclosure of mortgage loans on the property. So this is more for either multifamily apartment complexes, or I think there is a single family home component to this also. But these vouchers basically subsidize the rent at rural development finance properties, or if the owner does agree to accept the voucher, it can be used for any non-subsidized rental unit in the U.S. that meet the housing standards for USDA. The voucher cannot be used at rental units in subsidized housing because that would be considered a double subsidy. So you can't have both USDA and another voucher at the same time. So this is, like I said, this is primarily in more of the rural areas. So Marty's 14 county region probably has a lot more of this than probably Tarrant County does. We do have a couple of them, I believe, in Tarrant County, but this is going to be in those more rural areas. So we also have Section 811 supportive housing for persons with disabilities. And this is a HUD program that basically provides funding to develop and subsidize rental housing with supportive services for very low and extremely low income individuals with disabilities. The goal primarily with this program is to help people with disabilities live independently in the community with supportive services. And there's two different ways it usually operates. The traditional way is by providing interest-free capital advances, operating subsidies to nonprofit developers of affordable housing. So that if they offer Section 811 units, then those are specifically for people that would have, pretty significant disability. The other way is by providing a project rental assistance program to state housing agencies. So you'll also see this through Texas Department of Community and Housing Affairs as well. So on the state side, so HUD is one option, and then the other one is TDHCA, or Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. So now I'm going to go into more affordable housing options. And I wanted to talk about the vouchers first because it really is difficult sometimes to get into voucher programs. And these are additional options that can be thought of and sought out. So one of these is through here again, Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs has Project Access. And basically it is the state of Texas version of the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program, but it's just administered by the state of Texas instead of by HUD. This also assists low-income persons with disabilities in transitioning from institutions back into the community. And so these you'll find are, oops, sorry. You do have to have a permanent disability um, according to the SSA, Social Security Administration, to get these. And typically, you do have to have eligibility of at least one of three eligibility criteria also, and those include being at risk, and previously having been in a skilled facility or intermediate care facility, a state psychiatric hospital, or a boarding care facility as defined by HUD. Another eligibility criteria would be a current resident of a skilled facility, and all of those at the time the voucher is issued. So if a person's in a nursing home or in a facility, when that voucher comes through, that would qualify them. And also, they could also be eligible for a pilot program at the Department of State Health Services Psychiatric Hospital. And again, it just basically helps people that are disabled kind of transition out of those institutions back into the community. Let me see. So another voucher or another type of affordable housing is HOPWA, which is housing opportunities for persons with HIV. And basically this allowed people with AIDS and HIV to have long-term strategies for housing assistance for that population specifically. The goal actually, when they started, this was back in the 90s when there still was a lot of, work with medications and things, that this allowed people with HIV and AIDS to have a place of their own to die with dignity, basically. So, but now we've got all the medications, so it's not quite as prominent, more control, I believe. So, there's also something called the Housing Tax Credit Program, and Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs has control of this program. And basically what this is a way to, it's a way to direct capital investments into development and preservation of affordable housing for lower income individuals and families. So there's two different types of housing tax credit programs. And one is a 4% non-competitive program, and then the other one is a 9% competitive. And the 9% competitive is much more sought after when the way the housing market has gone. There is more of the 4% coming in since it is changing slightly. So you'll see both of these on the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs website also. But there is an application for developers and people that want to develop affordable housing. And typically the application cycle begins in August, where the developers are choosing the site they want to build at, they're getting their funding, construction costs put together. They have to set up their accounts with TDHCA for the pre-application, and that they're all getting ready to basically compete for funding to build their development. And so all the properties you see that are being built, a lot of them are these tax credit housing properties. In January and February, then they do have to gain city support and nonprofit support, and they do come to me and Marty and other housing and nonprofit entities to request letters of support for their pre-application. So it gets very, very busy during this time of the year. And then in March, their applications are due. So they have the deadline of March to get these in. And then in July, at the Texas State Housing Conference, usually down in Austin is where they have it. They will announce the awards. So the properties that get those funding awards are announced at that conference. So it's a constant revolving cycle for these tax credit awards. So, and then we also have, so I wanted to include public housing in this section because it really is more about the units that are available more than I guess the vouchers would be. But so public housing it's really based on a variety of factors: occupancy, how many people are going to live in the home, the median income of the area, and just a variety of different things. So, and there is a pretty good calculation formula they use for this. However, in recent years, we have been seeing deconcentrations of public housing complexes. I know in Fort Worth, they have a rental assistance demonstration property that I don't like the term, but they typically are what some people would call project housing. But they are getting rid of those to allow families to have opportunities in multi-income neighborhoods. So that is what the rental assistance demonstration and the choice neighborhood initiatives are designed to do, is to give those families more options for better opportunity neighborhoods. And the income limits for public housing falls anywhere between 30% on up to 80% of the federal poverty level. The units are owned and managed by the local public housing authorities. So these do have long wait lists also, but I believe these can be shorter than the housing choice voucher wait list, simply because the apartments, work with the housing authorities to offer these. So the only thing about these, and I'll explain this in just a minute, is that it's more limiting. And I'll explain why here in just a second. But older properties may be located in less desirable areas sometimes with these, but it really just depends on the complex and where it's located. So, I wanted to give y'all an overview of the different types of rental assistance that you'll see with HUD. And it really just depends on the type. So you basically have project-based rental assistance, which is units that are set aside subsidized units for families under 50% area median income. The tenants in these will usually pay 30% of their adjusted gross income for their portion of the rent. And here again, the difference is paid by the housing authority. It's still very much the 30% rent amount same as the other program, but there are some differences. Um, uh, these can be utilized for specific groups, like veterans, homeless individuals, disabled, seniors. So these can be utilized across the board. And then the actual units are held with the vouchers. So these do not transfer. So if the person or the family moves out of the complex, they're not going to go with the family. So the family has to really be careful with these types of vouchers to make sure that they're ready for that. And then on the other side of things, it's a tenant-based rental assistance. And these are designed to assist individuals, households with rental subsidies. Here again, more subsidized housing. The level of assistance with these can range depending on the housing market across the country. So it may vary from one state to another, depending on, if you have a California house, which is like skyrocketing levels versus a unit here, there's going to be a marked difference in the market there. So that can range from 30 to 80%. These do travel with the tenants and can be used in any of the U.S. states for what they call portability. And that just means that the housing authorities have to communicate with each other. And sometimes they don't, but they must. So basically, the housing authority of where the person is living at before they move must send paperwork to the housing authority of where they plan to go and get all that paperwork in. They still may incur some wait times, but it can be used that way. And here again, they have to talk to each other. So I want to also talk a little bit about home ownership and family self-sufficiency programs. And I know in Fort Worth and probably many other areas, they are trying to market home ownership pretty heavily because it can be cheaper in the long run for families than apartment living. But there are some things to know about this. So Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs has something called the Texas Home Buyers Program. And basically it assists, now for the state of Texas, these are in non-participating jurisdictions for tenants and families. So these are more in those areas that may not have like public housing authorities or, something like that. So that's what these are. The eligibility or you have to be a first-time home buyer who's not owned a home as a primary residence for the past 3 years, must meet income guidelines and purchase price limits, funds available through lender partners throughout the state, who determines the ability to repay the mortgage loan. So they have to go through lenders in a lender process. Typically the mortgage process itself takes 45 to 60 days, depending on several factors, qualifications, all of that kind of stuff. So, and this actually is a really neat program I've learned more about through the Tarrant County Housing Assistance Office. And most housing authorities have this component. They asked me to be on a committee for this program in Tarrant County. And what this does is actually, it's a voluntary program for families or participants in the Housing Choice Voucher Program. They can also be participants in HUD-VASH, mainstream vouchers, those types of things also. But this helps basically families increase their earnings and build financial capability and assets. So it's really designed to help families kind of step themselves out of their dependency on the welfare assistance and rental subsidies. This what this program does is it basically opens an interest-bearing escrow account to use after they graduate from the program, and they can use it however they wish to use it, but it is encouraged to use it as a down payment towards the house. So they work very closely with families, and they do match whatever the income amounts the families make in order to put that money into that account. So if a family is making, a certain ways, they're going to take a small amount of that and put it in that account for them. So really neat program. I love the idea of this program. So they do have a program coordinating committee, as I said, which is basically nonprofit and for-profit entities kind of coming together to discuss how the program works and to bring in specific, education pieces for the families and all of that. So, and then I'm going to round everything out with just a little bit of information on home rehabilitation and repair program. It's not too much, but I thought these were really helpful to know because these basically help qualified homeowners rehabilitate or repair their homes. And it can include things like electrical, heating, plumbing, roofing, doors, windows, or flooring, and in some cases, foundations. So foundations are a little more tricky with this, but it's not impossible depending on the case. So in Fort Worth, you'll see the priority repair program through the community action partners. And in the city of Arlington, the housing authority runs those programs. And actually, Arlington has the contract for another program that Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs operates called the Amy Young Barrier Removal Program. And basically, this specific program provides funding to repair any accessible barriers in the home of a person with disabilities, and they can fund up to $22,500 for this project. The only difficulty is that it's really hard to get organizations to buy into this because sometimes they eat some of the administrative costs in doing so, but it's still really, really helpful for people that need, ramps installed in the home or even a bathroom remodeling, something like that. So these can be helpful. And then I also wanted to touch on just some different housing options to think about. And these are more creative, outside of the box things to consider with families, with people with disabilities, everything. So there's shared housing, which there's a group in Dallas, and Marty will know the name of that. I cannot remember the name offhand, but the group in Dallas, I think it's shared housing communities, maybe. And basically what that does is that matches a homeowner that's willing to open up their house to a person with the person seeking the housing. And is so basically that person seeking the housing works as a helper around the house and in exchange for that rent amount or an agreed live, situation. So the group in Dallas actually does background checks. They have case managers that work, hand in hand with both the homeowner and the tenant seeking the housing. So really helpful program, but it is so small. And this is what I see one of the biggest possibilities for increasing housing here in town in Texas. Um, and then there's also transitional housing, which is typically designed for short-term rental situations involving a homeowner that is renting rooms out of a privately owned home. The homeowner basically offers different types of services and amenities. So sometimes they will include utilities included, or they have usually semi-private rooms or private rooms. Typically you'll see some of these start around, I've seen them for about 600 on upwards, but it's really at the discretion of that homeowner. So sometimes that can be flexible a little bit more with rent amounts, but you have to be careful with these because there is some liability issues that occur with these. And they are not regulated by the state of Texas anymore. So it is a private arrangement between the two entities. So people have to really be careful with these and really, kind of go and inspect them and that type of thing. Fort Worth has recently they implemented a room and board inspection process and permitting process. So if it's within the city limit, they have to be permitted. And there is a whole website link on this process. And so the code enforcement actually is involved in that. So they go out and inspect these homes by the fire department. So another one is tiny homes. In one of our seminars, we highlighted the tiny homes, and you'll see them. They're very common now, but they're basically just very small living environments. It focuses on space-saving organizational design. So that's their primary focus, is making the best use of space in these homes. And then accessory dwelling units. These are what you'd consider the backyard cottages. And these are really ideal for older adults living with adult children, but still giving them their independence. And many of them do have typical things you would find in an apartment. You can make it to where plumbing is out there, all the things you would find. There is some cities I have noticed are hesitant to pass ordinances for these, but they are becoming more open to the idea. And I know Tarrant County is talking about it. So they're starting to talk about the different options that are available. They just have to be, go through the permitting process too, zoning and all of that. And then another one that I thought was really interesting is something called monolithic dome homes or container homes. And basically, monolithic domes are super insulated, steel reinforced concrete, thin shell structures. If you think of the old, if you envision yurts, they're kind of like yurts, but they're more reinforced like that. But really interesting design that I know. We also had a founder of a monolithic dome home community, and I think that's down in Central Texas. And they actually started building these for reentry population. So that is a really neat idea, I thought too. And usually they're really nice. If you look up monolithic homes, you'll see that they're really quite interesting and just um, an ideal situation for maybe a one person place. So those are some different types of housing things. And if anybody has any questions on any of this, please don't hesitate to contact me. And I'm always available. And anytime you want any information, I can always be, I'm always at your disposal with any questions that you have. So um, that is all that I have, Marty.
You're going to turn it over to me. There's
Yes,
lots of
I'm
great
turning it
comments.
back.
Thank Kelley, thank you so very much.
Mhm.
The monolithic homes are in Italy, Texas, which is just south of Waxahachie. It's between Dallas and White's and Hillsboro on 35. And you see, if you've ever driven through there, you'll see he's got one that's almost like a caterpillar along
Yeah.
the side of the road. But they have a plant there and everything, and they've done a fair amount of work worldwide for affordable housing. But I'm going to go ahead and get started on strategies and resources. Kelley, thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
I'm going to work, just so you know, we're going to concentrate on just a few of the strategies and resources. Some people have already started putting my presentation in the chat because they're answering the questions before I get to them. But there's some that are very good at one in the chat that I have not seen before. So there's several different sites you can go to find affordable housing. And so we're going to walk through resources and strategies for finding affordable housing. If you all have any questions, if you'll put those in the Q&A, it's hard to filter through the chat, and so it's much more efficient for us to be filtering, going to the Q&A and finding all the questions. It will allow us to get more of them answered in the time we have. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is just the strategies. I mean, you really, I know many of these go without saying, but start early. You know, just because you can afford the rent this year, and they're upping it, you need to be expecting that if there's an increase again next year, I need to start applying now. Housing, it takes a while. There is no quick, easy answer. So you need to start as early as you can. Know the household income. We'll go over that here in just a little bit, but it's going to include every adult or every person wage earner in the household. But if there's a caregiver in the household, will not in most cases include their income. That is exempt. Know what types of subsidies and rental programs and how they work, which is why we're doing this today. That's really important, so you can spend your time working on the ones that you know are possible and not wasting your time working on ones that are not. Know what the family qualifies for. Your public or PH through the Public Housing Authority, or you can go to a affordable housing community and sit down and talk to someone, because there are some exemptions from your income that can be taken out based on medical expenses and that kind of thing that might make you qualify, even though your gross income may be higher than what the guidelines say. Apply to as many places as you can. Visit the property. I can't tell you how many people I've suggested this to, and it works. I want to, real quick, the property manager and the people leasing the property are responsible to the owners, and they're responsible for keeping as much income as they can coming in to the property. So if they find out tomorrow that they have a unit that someone's just going to leave in a week, and they didn't give the 30-day notice for some reason, and they need to fill that as soon as possible, they may want a tenant in there in 2 weeks. And most people on their waiting list are most likely going to have to give a 30-day notice. And if you're flexible and you get yourself in a situation where you're ready to at least sign the documents and start paying the rent early, that's going to give you an edge above most other people, because most other people are going to have to give a 30-day notice wherever they're moving from. And most people think, well, I'm not going to sign up for anything before that 30 days because I'll be paying rent twice. Sometimes that's a very, very good investment for getting into something that's affordable. And I can't tell you, I've had this work for people. Visit the property, get to know the managers, and be ready to move quickly. That is going to give you an edge above most people. Please, and I know a lot of people on here are professionals, don't be embarrassed or afraid to apply for help. If you qualify, you are entitled to it just as much as someone else is. And so please so many people don't want to ask for help, don't want to apply for help. And then they get down to the point where they're facing homelessness and they've got 3-year waiting lists. Please apply if you think you qualify, and let them tell you don't. And please don't give up. It does happen. People get it. I know it's frustrating, but we see people get it every day. So first thing I'm going to talk about is HUD income limits. These are the income limits that they set to help guide who doesn't qualify. And so I'm going to take you to the site here, and this is the link to the site. I'm going to quickly walk you through doing some pictures. I'm not going to go over to the site just because I don't want to tech issues coming back and forth. So you're going to see me do this with several sites. But I'm trying to show you through pictures. This is what the site looks like. You're going to choose the state that you live in. It's going to give you, once you chose Texas, it's going to ask you what county you're looking for. And then it's going to talk about, and so I chose Denton County. And so Denton County, Texas is in my service area. So if you're looking for who qualifies, these are actually brand new numbers, but this is the 2024 income limits that are issued by HUD. Now you're going to see the one in the middle that says extremely low income. This is, I'm going to use this because when you see me talk about 30% AMI units in a few minutes, you're going to know these are the income guidelines they use. Most of the housing choice voucher or the voucher programs will use a 50% or very low income guideline. So these are the guidelines that normally you'll see them using, but you need to ask them, what guidelines. There are 80% guidelines for some programs. You're going to see there's 50s and 60s. There's several different ones, but these are the most common ones you're going to see. These and the 60% units, which is not calculated here, will be the most common. So this is where you're going to find out what their income qualifies them for, or at least what subsidies these programs use, what guidelines that they use. I'm sorry. So strategies for housing choice vouchers. First of all, you need to be able to find out what public housing authorities are in your area. Here's a site that you can go to that will tell you from its HUD. And again, you'll drill down and find out which housing authorities. We're going to do that here in just a second with pictures the same way we did the other ones. You want to find out if the housing authorities have a preference or a set aside. Preferences are for people on their waiting list that jump ahead of everybody else and are given vouchers first. Some people have preference, some housing authorities will have preferences for seniors. Some housing authorities might have preferences for veterans or persons with disabilities. Some have will do a preference for people that are already living in their community. But ask them what their preferences are. And then there's set-asides. Set-asides are when they take a certain number of vouchers and they set them aside for a specific population, or again, the same type of a thing might go. They might have set-asides for persons with disabilities or people that have been homeless in their community. But those are a separate list. That is a set-aside list, as opposed to a preference, which is for people that are on their big waiting list that move to the top. And so you want to find out what that is. Determine if you're eligible to apply. Many times you can be waiting on a housing choice voucher list, and you can sign up for more than one. So sign up for several if you can. Go in your area. It doesn't have to be the closest housing authority to you. You can we have people all the time in Denton County that apply in McKinney, that apply in Plano, that apply in Dallas. You can apply to more than one housing authority, but you need to make sure you know if they have vouchers, and you'll see that here in just a second. If you are applying for a voucher and you think you're getting up on the waiting list and possibly going to find one, start looking for housing. I cannot tell you how many problems we've had with people that get to the top of the waiting list. They get notified that they can get a voucher, and then they try to go out and use it, and they can't find anybody to take it. It's very difficult these days to find landlords that will accept affordable housing vouchers or housing choice vouchers. That changes usually with the economy. When landlords have few vacancies, they don't want to deal with having to do all that goes along with housing choice vouchers. But I can guarantee you, when we're overbuilt, which that looks like it may be coming, we'll see. But when we're overbuilt, all of a sudden they have units sitting empty, and they're much more open to doing the extra work to get that money and take those vouchers. So right now we're in an economy where it's hard to find. But just so you remember, most affordable housing communities that have received any kind of HUD assistance are required to take vouchers. That doesn't mean that you move to the top of their waiting list. It just means that if you go there and you get to the top of their waiting list, and you have a voucher, that most of them are required to accept vouchers. Here's where you're going to go to find your PHA, your affordable, your public housing authority, and you're going to go through here just like that. It's very simple. This is going to take you to a page. You can either choose the state on the left-hand side, or you can click on the map. Just so you know, on this one, in Texas especially, you need to click on what region of Texas you're in, because you'll see it pops up in very different regions. So where's my middle map didn't show up. I'm sorry, I left out the middle map. So here's the Texas housing authorities. This is a long list. You're going to scroll up and down them. They're actually in order by the city, the alphabetical order by city. But you're going to see next to them, some housing authorities do Section 8 only. They do housing choice vouchers only. Some housing authorities do public housing only. And so they're not going to have vouchers. But some do both. And so you can go through the list and look and see whether the housing authorities you're looking at, where they are, and which ones take vouchers. Which ones handle vouchers, and which ones just do public housing. And and that should help you there. And again, it's for this one. It would have been for the state of Texas. So let's talk about the housing choice voucher. Some more strategies. I'm going to drill down and use as an example the Denton housing authorities and talk about their programs and how to get through on that. But to determine if they currently available, or if you can get on a waiting list, you really need to probably go to their website or call them. Most of the waiting lists are closed. Not all of them, most of them, especially in the big urban cities that we're seeing. Most of them are closed, and as Kelley said, the waiting lists are years long. If the waiting list is closed to new applicants, find out how you can get notified when they open it. How do you get on an email list or something to make sure when they send out the notice that they're opening the waiting list that you are that you would get notified somehow? I know they don't have an obligation to, but you want to ask them how you can do that, and but they're not responsible whether you got an email or not, is what I'm saying. But just be careful, because there have been times when the waiting lists have opened and they've only opened for, let's say, a certain amount of vouchers. Let's say we're only going to, I'm not vouchers, a certain amount of applicants. They're only going to allow 500 applicants or 5,000 applicants. And I can tell you, we've seen times where those close in a matter of hours or minutes because they've gotten as many applicants as they set out to get. I can tell you, we've seen thousands of people apply in minutes for different housing authorities. But most of the time, they're open for a period of time from, maybe for 7 days, sometimes for 30 days. But when they open for a certain number, I've seen them open for months as they're waiting to get those numbers. But usually, I've seen more often than this. In this economy, I've seen them close in a matter of hours and on some cases minutes. So then here's an example of a website, and there's several. A website you can go to that actually gives you information on all the different waiting lists in Texas, and it has notes on it for many of them of the waiting list status of it. And there are several out there. Like I said, I've seen some other people put in some links in the chat. Thank you all for doing that. That's part of what makes this helpful, is everybody sharing information as well. When you're on the waiting list, once you get on it, make sure you keep your contact information up to date, and make sure you respond promptly if you're contacted by them, whether it is by email or by snail mail, because that's how they purge these lists. They purge them because periodically they send out notices to everybody, and whoever doesn't respond gets just scratched from the list, and you don't get back on the list where you left off. You get back on at the bottom of the list if you haven't responded. Please be careful. If you get a housing choice voucher, please understand the rules and follow them. I always say that the housing choice vouchers are really the golden ticket to affordable housing. They're the golden ticket for two reasons. Number one, they're sliding scale. If your income goes up, your rent goes up. If your income goes down, your rent goes down. And they're portable. You can choose where you want to live with them in most cases. Once you first get them, you usually have to live in their service area for at least a year. I know we've set people up to Gainesville many times because their housing in Gainesville, Texas, you've been able to get on theirs pretty easy. I know they have we talked about preferences. They have a preference for people that are already living in Gainesville, but that doesn't mean other people can't apply. But if you get a voucher from them, you have to live in their service area for 1 year before the voucher becomes portable. When you start moving them out of state, you can do that. It's a little more difficult, but there comes some issues when you're moving from a low cost state to a very high cost state, and using, and the rents are much higher. There usually is a process that they have to go through, and I know local authorities have denied them before because they can't afford the rent in the place where you're wanting to go. So here's the example, the Denton Housing Authority. This is theirs. If you scroll down, you're going to see their housing choice voucher, and this is their website. And then at the bottom, it talks about waiting lists. You're going to click on this, and it will give you more information about their application portal and that kind of thing. But you might end up having to call. But finally, I found here where it says the application, they're closed until further notice. Some housing authorities, that'll be on the front page right away. You'll see it. Sometimes you have to dig for it, but you look on their websites. If you don't find it, you just call them. Is it open? And that. And again, you're talking about different waiting lists for vouchers as you are for public housing. And then if they have mainstream vouchers, you're probably talking about a different list as well. But the project-based vouchers that Kelley talked about, that's the housing authorities, a lot of times in order to incentivize new development, they'll offer a developer for affordable development. They'll offer a developer a certain number of vouchers that become site-based vouchers or project-based vouchers. Those vouchers are assigned to that property. They usually get a certain number of them, and in many cases, the waiting list for those are actually at that property, are managed by the property. In some cases, the housing authority we'll see that, and I'll show you an example of that here in just a minute. But you want to check with the PHAs in the area and ask them if there's project-based, if there's projects in the community, and I don't want to call them projects, that's terrible. And project-based is really a bad word because it refers back to the projects, which is a derogatory term, but they're site-based vouchers. And if they've assigned any site-based vouchers to complexes in their community, that you would have to go and apply for it there. There's going to be a lot of different waiting lists in regards to improving your odds for getting affordable housing. You got to get on them. You got to get on as many of them as you can. Here is the Fort Worth Housing Authority. Here's their information on project-based vouchers. In this case, in their case, and this is just an example, they actually have several communities that they're in the process of accepting applications for project-based vouchers, and as you scroll down, they list several of them. And so in that case, you're actually applying for them at the housing authority as opposed to applying for them at the property or site. But it could be either. So mainstream vouchers. Mainstream vouchers is a different type of voucher that came out a few years back. Kelley talked about it earlier. I want to show you how to find those. And here's the link to where I'm going to take you with some pictures. And it's really pretty much the same strategies as with other vouchers, but you need to know who's got mainstream vouchers and who doesn't. If you have a client or yourself know you qualify for those, where do you find them? So mainstream vouchers, this is where they're going to take. This is where the link's going to take you. You're going to click on this. It's going to download, and you're going to have to either go to your downloads or click on the download up here, and it's going to download a spreadsheet. And then you're going to go through and click up here on the state to I don't know if you know how to use filters, but this will walk you through using the filters. There's a drop-down box there you click on. And once you click on the drop-down box, there's a thing at the top that says unselect all, just select Texas. And then you're going to get these are all of the awards for mainstream vouchers that were given in the state of Texas. There were different grant years, but the total is in the far right corner. And yes, mainstream is in a lot of states. You'll see if you back up once, you can pick other states and see where the vouchers were awarded in those states as well. I'm going to hurry through this. We are running up against our time, but so resources and strategies for affordable housing. What I talked about here first was different types of vouchers for affordable housing. The HUD resource locator is really a good source. It's fairly comprehensive, but a lot of people like it. Somebody just put one in the chat, and I'll include the one he put in the chat on my mail out, on my follow-up email, because I got into it, and it's pretty interesting. It was pretty good. And that one just does tax credit housing. But if you go to the locator, it's going to give you this map. You're going to click on Texas, and and then it's going to give you these options of what are you looking for. You can do all. I want to see all resources, or I just want to see affordable housing opportunities. I want to find homeless resources. This gives you some different options of resources that you might look at while you're doing that. Here's once you get in there, here's the map for affordable housing. And I've chosen one in Denton, which is the veranda. And this tells you how many 1-bedroom, how many 2-bedroom, how many 3-bedroom units they have. And then it shows you, if you scroll down, what kind of subsidies they have. This is the low-income housing tax credit program. But I think you're going to find that this apartment complex, I'm pretty sure, is one that was built by the Denton Housing Authority, and it has quite a few site-based vouchers at it. And you're not going to know that without asking, but I think you're going to find there's a fair number of site-based vouchers at this community. But you just got to, it's work. You got to work and find it. Affordable strategies for tax credit properties. You got to understand how the rent structure works for tax credit properties. One of the things that tax credit properties do is they get a lot of people say they're not affordable. Well, you have to understand they're mixed income housing. They have a very small number of highly subsidized units. Most of them are at the extremely low income or 30% AMI units. And when I say most of them, most of that very small number of highly subsidized units. Usually it's maybe 5% of the units, if that. And then here is, I'm going to take you to the vacancy clearinghouse and show you how that works in Texas. First of all, let's talk about the rent structure for tax credit housing. It is not sliding scale like we're used to with most of the vouchers and some of the other subsidies. It is what I call stair step. It's mixed income housing. Here's an example. Palladium built one in Denton, Texas. This is their rent structure. They have 10 units at 30% area median income. They have 38 units at 50% median income, 45 units at 60, and they have 57 units at market rate. These are very mixed. Newer tax credit properties are usually very mixed income properties. And so you got to know what to ask for. When you're calling, when you have a client or yourself, and you know they qualify at the 30% level, a lot of times if you call them and ask the person who answers the phone, they won't know what you're talking about 30% AMI, especially in the environment we're in, that with so much growth, they've got to hire people to do jobs, and not all of them are trained to this depth. You've got to know that you need to ask to talk to the assistant manager or manager if you realize that they don't understand what you're talking about. Here's just an example of an award for the tax credit program. And I'm going to show you in a minute how to get a hold of them, but while the property's under development. But this is just an example of the sheet. I'll show you how to get to that. But this is the structure in the application, and I know this is small, but this is, if you're able to blow this up, that's why you get the slides. You're going to see that they have a certain number of units at 30% and 50%. These are 1-bedroom units, and they have some at 60%. So they have 5 units at 30% AMI, 16 units at 50%, and 3 units at 60%. Those are the 1-bedroom units. Then you go on to the 2-bedroom units, you're going to see market rate. I'll be honest with you, I just pulled this example up. Yeah, it was yesterday or this morning, and this is the first one I've ever seen that has 70% AMI units. That's a different one for me. I haven't seen that before. That was really interesting. But 80% you can see at times, and then the MR is market rate units. Those are non-subsidized units, and you can kind of see what the rent would be for the and you can see they're all renting the same size unit, and you can see what the different rent structure will be for them depending on what program it's on. So it will determine the difference between the cost of rent. But you can see that the 3-bedroom units, the market rate is $2,000, then it's $1,700, and then it's $1,500 for the 60% units. Those are really working class apartments and not your highly subsidized. You can see there's only a few. There's 5 1-bedroom and what is it, 1 2-bedroom, I think, that's highly subsidized. This is the vacancy clearinghouse. You're going to have to go through this. You get this to TDHA. I gave you the link. If you pick on the county, it'll give you a list of all the affordable housing units in Denton County. And then you can go on down here, and this is the veranda. We talked about this earlier, but this will show you how many units they have that are modified for people with disabilities. This tells you how many units they have at different sizes. This is 3-bedroom, 2-bath units. And then sometimes you have this, you can get some more information down here if utilities are included in the rent. But this is their site. This is called the Vacancy Clearinghouse. This is the information you're going to get from their site. It's be careful, because when you talk about vacancies here, they have to update this. They're required to update it. I think it's only once every 90 days. So the vacancy information is usually not very reliable on here. You're going to need to call and check with them and find out what if they have any units available. So then to get on the list of new rental units, I highly recommend this as a strategy for getting into a unit. Find a brand new complex that's being developed and find out when are they going to start taking applications for tenants for the new property. And I'm telling you, usually they should have to give you a day and time when they're going to start. And you want to be ready to apply when they start, because those 30% units will go very quickly because other people are using this strategy too. But you can find out, usually it takes about 18 months from the time that they close the award and they've closed their tax credits, depending on the 4% or 9%. And you want to just get a hold of anybody you can that can help you out. I'm going to show you here. These are links to get you to the awards for the last 3 years, because if you go back 18 months, you're going to find out some of those are just coming online now or maybe soon. And, they have rain delays and all other things that could set that back as well. So how you got to this is going to the TDHCA, the archives for 9%. I clicked on 2023. You'll see the link here for the award, housing tax credit award list for 2023. This will give you the award. Once you click on that, it's gonna download again up here. You'll pull out the download, and then you're gonna find on that download what is the application number. It's gonna be in this left-hand column, and then you're gonna go back to this page, and click on this link, and that will download their full application for the affordable housing. And if you go through it, it's hundreds of pages long. You're going to see that you can find the information of how many units at how many at the different income levels. But this will give you, on the very first page, it will give you a contact for who to contact, or it also says contact page on tab 5. You can open this thing up by using these 3 lines up here, get to the tab 5, and you get 2 different contacts for that property. And get a hold of them, find out when they're going to open up. Now we're going to go real quick through the USDA that Kelley talked about. They only some of their units are subsidized, not all of them. But the ones that are subsidized do work sliding scale like vouchers, and they either use the 30% of adjusted monthly income or the 10% of gross income. And if the utilities aren't provided by the landlord, then they have to reduce the 30% by a utility allowance. But you're going to go into their site. This is their site. I've given you the link to it. You're going to click on Texas. Here's the one that it's important you get in the region. And then you're going to scroll down, and these are the ones in Denton County. There's not a lot, but for those of you in more rural part of Texas, even than I'm in, you'll see that there's more. So this gives you the information on one, and then you'll look on here, and the income limits, you can click on here for the income limits, but you can also see up here how many units with subsidies. There's a total of 40 units, but only 35 of them have subsidies with them. So then I clicked on the income limits, and here's the income limits for that property for people that are that want to qualify for the subsidy. You just have to make under these income limits, and you can see they're pretty high. So in addition to that, we as housing navigators are required to have affordable housing inventories for our service area. Mine's at North Texas. Kelley's is at Tarrant County. I highly encourage you to take a look at those. What I've done on Kelley's even got some that say units with utilities included. Mine doesn't go that far, but I've incorporated several of these sites together in order to keep them on. But any ADRC in Texas, and here, if you want to find it in a different part of Texas, you can go to this link, and it'll take you to where you can find your local housing. This is me, and it is 3 minutes to spare to try to answer questions. This is my contact information. I'm not going to leave this on here much because you're going to get that in the follow-up email. I need to go over before we start answering questions, I need to go over the CEUs because I know some people will have to get off here in just a couple of minutes. For those of you that are joining us today that are looking to get CEUs, we're providing CEUs for licensed social workers and licensed professional counselors in Texas. Certificates of attendance are also available for those who are needing one. If you're licensed with a different license in Texas or you're licensed outside of Texas, feel free to go through the process, get a certificate. You can give that to your jurisdiction, but there's no guarantees that they'll take it. Today's webinar is worth 1.5 hours of CEU credits. You must have completed the entire webinar and the Q&A up to just a few minutes from now. I think just 1 minute now, in order to qualify. The Zoom, when you close out of it, it should give you the opportunity. It should ask you if you want to take a short survey. That should go to our Google survey. If not, it will also be included as a link in the follow-up email I send to you with. It will also have my contact information and Kelley's as well. If you have questions afterwards, please feel free to ask us your questions. The Google evaluation survey will be up for a week. If you please finish it by that time, that's when it will close out. Please give us about 4 weeks to get those certificates out to you. But please, in the Google survey, if there's part of the affordable housing, I know there's some parts we did not cover today, and if there's parts that you'd like us to go into additional depth in, please note that as you're completing your survey. So Kelly, I don't know, did you find questions? This is just, I added some extra slides just for note where you see people like McKinney Housing Authority redeveloping their old housing stock into brand new housing with addition that adding units. You can see where they've gone from 86 units to 132 units, and that's great stuff. Kelly, is there anything else? One of the things I'll add is the 4%. Kelly touched on this. The 4% housing tax credit program. When you go to the logs, you'll see that program has been revived a lot. It became almost non-existent when the interest rates were so low, it didn't work. But now that interest rates have gone up, we're seeing a lot more 4% affordable housing coming online. And so that's definitely worth looking into that. Kelly, what did you see for questions?
I've been trying to answer all questions through the chats and the Q&A as much as I'm able to.
Nice, yeah.
As Marty said, if we're not getting to your question, just send us your information through the evaluation, and we will get in touch with you. So
I'm just going through here to and Connect Care Dallas. They also have an inventory, and they have Dallas County, and I see they've given us. I'll include their link in the. Thank you for sending that. I'll include their link in the follow-up email as well. Yeah, yes, the programs are in Texas.
I did link
yes.
Marty to Dallas Connect to Care also in the chat area. So it's in there somewhere, but I'll have to link for that. So
yeah, and just so you know, you can find the list of housing authorities in any state. You can find the list of those. You just have to Google for them, and it should tell you whether they have vouchers or affordable housing or both.
Marty, I do see a comment that if you can include our contact information in the follow-up email.
It will absolutely be there. Absolutely be there.
I think that's all.
I think we've gotten to a lot of it. Inclusive community
projects,
families with Section 8 housing vouchers to locate rental housing in high opportunity. Nice. Thanks for Lisa. Thanks for adding that. Inclusive community projects. We work with them a lot. They're in. I think there is. Can you tell us, Lisa, what counties? Oh, I said you got it in. I'm sorry. Very, very good. Denton, Collin, Dallas, Tarrant, Rockwall, Ellis, and Kaufman County. It's very, very good. Thank you so much. Well, thank you all very much. I'm gonna go ahead and first of all thank Kelly. Kelly, thank you so very much. I sincerely appreciate it. I love working with you, and I'm glad that we've been able to do this.
Absolutely, Marty. It's been fun, and it's been enjoyable. I've really enjoyed it today.
Me too. Me too. So thank you all so much for joining us. Please, you'll get our information to contact us. Please reach out if you have some questions about different types of housing or how to find it or that kind of thing. Thank you so much, and you all have just a wonderful day.
Have a great day.